secrets don't stay buried for long, and in episode 4 of Reasonable Doubt, season 3, the truth starts crawling out in ways no one expected. This is the episode where loyalty is tested, where motives are questioned, and where every look and every word feels like it's hiding something bigger. If you thought the first 3 episodes were laying the foundation, episode 4 is the one that shakes the ground under those foundations, making us wonder who we can trust and who's about to betray everything. Episode 4 opens with a heavy mood, and right away you can tell this isn't going to be just another filler chapter. The story picks up exactly where episode 3 left us hanging, with unanswered questions and unresolved tension that finally begin to crack open here. From the very beginning, we're pulled into a sense of uneasy characters walking on eggshells, conversations laced with hidden meaning, and every decision carrying the weight of consequences. The writing makes it clear that this episode is not about giving us comfort, it's about pushing the drama forward, pulling us deeper into the storm that's been brewing since the start of the season. One of the biggest storylines in this episode is centered on Jox, who continues to fight a battle on 2 fronts: the courtroom and her personal life. Her presence dominates every scene she's in, not just because of her sharp legal instincts, but because of the emotional storm she's carrying. Episode 4 shows us more than just her professional side. It shows the cracks in her armor, the arguments she has, the choices she makes, and even the silences between her words all speak volumes. It feels like the writers are reminding us that Jox is brilliant, but she's not unbreakable. And that's exactly why her story is so compelling here. At the same time, we see other characters stepping out of the shadows, demanding more of our attention. Relationships that once seemed steady now feel shaky, and alliances that looked unbreakable begin to show signs of strain. Episode 4 doesn't waste time. Every interaction matters. Every line of dialogue is a breadcrumb leading us toward something bigger. What makes it stand out is that it doesn't just feed us drama for shock value. It layers the tension carefully, so we feel both surprised and satisfied as each reveal comes to light. The courtroom scenes, which are always a highlight of the series, feel sharper in this episode. They're not just about the law, they're about power, truth, and perception. The way witnesses are questioned, the way arguments are framed, it's not just storytelling, it's a chess game. And as always, Jox is at the center, moving her pieces carefully but also showing signs of the personal toll this game is taking on her. You can sense she's walking a tightrope, one wrong move away from everything crashing down. Episode 4 also gives us some powerful emotional beats outside of the courtroom. We see moments of vulnerability, confrontations that sting, and quiet scenes that carry as much weight as the loud ones. A simple glance, a pause, or even a choice not to speak, feels loaded with meaning here. That's part of what makes this episode so gripping. You're not just watching what people do, you're watching what they don't do. And sometimes that says even more. The pacing of this recap-worthy chapter is what makes it stick. It balances the big reveals with the slow burns, giving us room to breathe while still keeping us on edge. By the time the episode reaches its midpoint, you realize you're not just catching up on events, you're being drawn into a web of lies, truths, and half-truths that will carry over into the rest of the season. And that's exactly what a great episode should do. Keep you thinking, keep you questioning, and keep you wanting more. In short, episode 4 of Reasonable Doubt, season 3 doesn't hold back. It doesn't play safe or keep things simple. Instead, it builds on the foundation of earlier episodes, deepens the conflicts, and sets the stage for explosive moments still to come. It's dramatic, it's tense, and most importantly, it feels like a turning point, a moment in the season where you know everything after this is going to matter even more. If there's one thing that episode 4 makes clear, it's that the strength of Reasonable Doubt doesn't only come from its sharp legal writing or thrilling storylines, it comes from its characters and the way they're brought to life on screen. Every single role feels alive in this episode, as if each person has something simmering under the surface that could spill out at any moment. What stands out most in episode 4 is how layered and human these characters feel. They're not just pieces on a chessboard being moved around for the sake of the plot. They are flawed, vulnerable, ambitious, and conflicted in ways that make you want to lean in closer, trying to read their thoughts. Jax is, of course, at the center. She continues to carry the series with a commanding presence, but in this episode, the mask slips a little more. We've always known her as strong, sharp, and almost unshakable. But here we see glimpses of her vulnerability that make her more relatable than ever. The way she balances her professional face in the courtroom with the chaos in her personal life is fascinating. You can feel the weight of her decisions pressing down on her, and even though she does her best to keep it all together, those little cracks in her armor make her feel real. It's not weakness, it's humanity. And that humanity makes her victories feel bigger and her struggles feel heavier. Outside of Jocks, Episode 4 shines a spotlight on the supporting characters in a way that adds real depth to the season. People who may have seemed like background players in earlier episodes begin to step forward with more presence here. Their motivations are not always spelled out, but you sense the shift in the way they act and react. Friends start to look like potential threats, and allies give off vibes of uncertainty. This adds layers of suspense because you realize the story isn't only about what Jocks is doing, it's about the people orbiting around her, and whether they're pulling her closer to the truth or dragging her further into danger. One of the most impressive aspects of Episode 4 is how the performances capture the subtlety of these shifts. It's not just about explosive arguments or dramatic breakdowns, it's about quiet tension, a glance that lingers too long, a line delivered with a double meaning, a moment of hesitation before answering a question. These little details are what keep you glued to the screen, because they suggest that what's being said on the surface is never the full story. The actors embody their characters so fully that you find yourself rewatching scenes, trying to catch the hidden emotions that flash across their faces for just a second before they cover them up again. There's also a sense of unpredictability in how relationships are portrayed here. Bonds that once seemed unshakable suddenly look fragile. A character you thought you understood begins to show a darker or more conflicted side. And those changes don't come with a neon sign pointing them out, they come in small, believable steps that make you question how well you really know these people. That's the brilliance of this episode's character work. It doesn't tell you who to trust or who to doubt. It lets the performances do the heavy lifting, leaving the audience to wrestle with the uncertainty. Episode 4 also plays with the idea of duality, how people present themselves versus who they really are. Almost every character in this episode is living in that tension. Jocks is the lawyer and the woman, the professional and the person with secrets. Other characters, too, wear masks to protect themselves, to manipulate others, or to hide truths they're not ready to reveal. Watching these layers peel back bit by bit is part of the thrill. You realize that no one in this world is simple, and no one is entirely good or entirely bad. They all live in shades of gray, which makes every performance feel honest. What makes this section of the story so unique is that it doesn't just focus on plot, it deepens our emotional investment. By showing us new sides of characters, Episode 4 invites us to rethink everything we thought we knew. The performances are so convincing that even when a character does something shocking, it feels earned, like we've been watching that choice build quietly over time. And that's why this episode feels like a turning point. It reminds us that the people we're watching aren't just players in a legal drama, they're complex human beings. And their decisions will shape not only their own fates, but the course of the entire season. By the time the credits roll, you don't just remember the events of Episode 4, you remember the looks, the pauses, the voices trembling under the weight of secrets. You remember the characters as if they were people you actually knew. And that's the magic of a show like Reasonable Doubt. It's not just about the crime, the courtroom, or the shocking reveals. It's about the people, and Episode 4 proves that when the characters shine, the whole story becomes unforgettable. Episode 4 of Reasonable Doubt Season 3 doesn't just entertain, it speaks in symbols, weaving deeper themes through every scene, every silence, and every sharp exchange. This episode is a mirror held up to the audience, asking us to think about the fine line between truth and lies, between justice and manipulation, between who we say we are and who we really are when the mask slips. What makes this episode so unique is that it never screams its message. Instead, it whispers, nudging us to notice the patterns in the shadows and the meanings hidden in small moments. It is an episode that is less about answers and more about doubt. And in that way, it lives up perfectly to the title of the series. The most obvious theme running through Episode 4 is trust. Trust feels like a currency in this story. Everyone wants it. Everyone demands it. But no one is really willing to give it without suspicion. You watch characters negotiate not just in the courtroom, but in their personal lives, trying to figure out who is lying and who is telling the truth. Jocks, in particular, becomes the embodiment of this struggle. She wants to believe in people, but her instincts tell her not to. The episode shows how heavy it is to carry suspicion everywhere you go, because it changes how you love, how you work, how you even look at yourself in the mirror. In a way, the real courtroom isn't just where Jocks stands professionally, it's also inside her head, with evidence of betrayal and loyalty being weighed every second of her day. Another strong theme here is the cost of ambition. Almost every character in this episode wants something for recognition, respect, freedom, and almost every one of them is forced to sacrifice something to get it. The symbolism comes in subtle ways. The way someone reaches across a desk but pulls their hand back. The way someone agrees to something but hesitates before nodding. The way a smile fades as soon as a door closes. Episode 4 makes it clear that ambition is not a clean, inspiring goal. It is messy, it is dangerous, and it comes with consequences that ripple through every relationship. Watching this theme unfold makes us question whether any of these characters can truly win, or if every victory will leave them bleeding somewhere else in their lives. There's also a recurring theme of masks and hidden faces. The show has always played with duality, but in this episode, it feels sharper, almost like a warning. Characters present themselves one way in public, confident, professional, controlled, but in private, they're unraveling, hiding secrets, or calculating their next moves. This theme is not only in the story but also in the visual rhythm of the episode. Shadows in rooms, reflections in glass, and long silences where we're meant to wonder what thoughts are being hidden behind a steady gaze. The symbolism here is clear. Truth is not something handed to us. It's something we have to dig for, and even then, we might not like what we find. Justice is another central theme, but what's powerful in episode 4 is how slippery it feels. The courtroom should be a place where the truth comes out, but the episode reminds us that justice is often more about perception than fact. The way a lawyer frames a question, the way a witness hesitates, the way the jury interprets body language, these things can become more powerful than the actual truth. It's a reminder that justice in this world isn't blind, it's manipulated, it's influenced, and it's often just a reflection of who can play the game better. This adds a layer of irony to the story, because the very system designed to uncover the truth becomes another stage where lies can wear suits and sound convincing. One of the subtler but most striking pieces of symbolism in this episode comes in the way silence is used. Silence in episode 4 isn't empty, it's heavy. When a character pauses before answering, when someone chooses not to speak, those moments feel louder than any courtroom outburst. It's as if the writers are reminding us that what's unsaid can be just as important as what's shouted. Silence here symbolizes both protection and danger. It can be a shield to hide behind, but it can also be a weapon that leaves others guessing and doubting. And in a show built on doubt, those quiet moments end up being some of the most powerful. Family and relationships also thread through the themes, showing us that the personal and professional worlds of these characters are never truly separate. Choices made in the courtroom echo at home, and private betrayals spill into public battles. The symbolism of doors opened, closed, slammed becomes a recurring image, signaling the shifts between these two worlds. Every closed door hides something, every open one risks exposure. It's a simple but effective way of reminding us that the stakes are not just legal, they are deeply human. By the end of episode 4, what lingers most isn't just the story itself but the ideas it leaves us with. Can you really know someone? Is justice ever truly fair? Is ambition worth the cost it demands? And perhaps the biggest question of all, when you're surrounded by secrets, how do you know which truth to believe? This is where the symbolism and themes of the episode elevate it beyond simple drama. They turn it into a meditation on doubt itself. The characters are all living in the gray space between truth and lies, and the audience is invited to live there with them. That's what makes this episode resonate long after it ends. It doesn't give us closure, it leaves us with questions. And those questions echo louder than any verdict ever could. Every episode of Reasonable Doubt has its share of memorable moments, but episode 4 feels like a collection of scenes deliberately designed to stay with you long after the credits roll. What makes these standout scenes so powerful isn't just the dialogue or the drama, it's the way they peel back layers of truth and emotion at the exact moment you think you've figured the story out. Episode 4 thrives on tension, and its best scenes are the ones that force the audience to sit with that tension, to watch it grow and ripple, until it explodes in a way that changes everything. The first scene that absolutely stands out happens inside the courtroom. It begins with what seems like a routine questioning, but quickly turns into a showcase of psychological warfare. The way the lawyers choose their words, the way the witness hesitates, the way the jury leans in. It's not just legal drama, it's theater, and we are the audience. What makes this moment unforgettable is how it perfectly captures the theme of perception versus truth. The facts are less important than how they're delivered. And as Jox maneuvers through the exchange, you can see the strain etched on her face. This isn't just about winning a case. It's about survival, about keeping control when the ground beneath you feels like it's breaking apart. By the time the gavel hits, you realize that what happened wasn't just legal strategy, was a battle of wills, and everyone walked away with scars. Another scene that demands attention comes away from the courtroom. In a quieter, more intimate setting, it's a confrontation between characters who share history, trust, and betrayal all tangled together in one conversation. At first, it feels calm, almost too calm, but that's what makes it powerful. Words are chosen carefully, pauses are heavy, and every glance feels like it's carrying years of unspoken anger and hurt. What makes this scene stand out is how it proves that silence can be more brutal than shouting. A single unanswered question, a moment where someone looks away instead of responding, hits harder than any argument could. Watching it unfold feels like standing in the middle of a storm you can't escape. You know the damage is happening in real time, and you know nothing will ever be the same after this exchange. Then there's the scene that shocks the audience not because it's loud or flashy, but because it reveals something we weren't ready to see. It's one of those twists that's been hinted at in small ways throughout the season, but here it explodes into the open. The brilliance of this reveal is that it doesn't come with a dramatic musical cue or an exaggerated reaction. Instead, it arrives almost quietly, like a piece of a puzzle finally snapping into place. And that subtlety makes it more chilling. The camera lingers just long enough for us to process what's happening. And in that pause, you feel the weight of everything that has come before. This is the kind of scene that redefines the story, because from this moment on, nothing we've believed can be taken at face value anymore. Of course, no episode would be complete without a moment that sticks in your gut purely because of the emotion it carries. In episode 4, that moment comes in a heartfelt exchange where vulnerability takes center stage. A character who has built their identity on strength finally lets the cracks show, and it's heartbreaking in its honesty. You can feel the exhaustion, the fear, and the desperate need for connection in every line. What makes this scene remarkable is that it reminds us why we care about these characters in the first place. Beneath all the lies, the strategy, and the games, they are people who want to be loved, who want to be seen, who want to find peace in a world that keeps tearing them apart. It's the kind of moment that makes you lean back and breathe, because it's raw and real, and it cuts deeper than any courtroom twist ever could. The closing moments of episode 4 deserve mention as well, because they don't just end the episode, they set the stage for what's coming. The final scene is crafted with precision, leaving us with more questions than answers, but questions that feel urgent. Questions that make it impossible not to watch the next episode. It's a moment of perfect balance, enough resolution to feel satisfying, but enough mystery to leave you restless. The way the scene is framed, the lingering look on a character's face, the choice of what is shown and what is left hidden, it all works together to leave the audience in a state of suspense. This isn't just a cliffhanger. It's a promise that the story is about to spiral even deeper into the heart of doubt. What ties all these standout scenes together is the way they layer tension with emotion. They're not just big moments for the sake of shock, they're carefully built, emotionally resonant, and deeply tied to the themes of the episode. They show us who these characters are, what they're willing to sacrifice, and how far they'll go to protect themselves or uncover the truth.